So here we are, step 3, which is the spur gear, and we're going to need the spur gear right there, which is there, and then you need the propeller joints, the bushings, this thing here, what do they call it now? It's a spur gear stopper. So there's all the parts, and of course I'm replacing all the plastic bearings with the or the plastic bushings with the metal bearings, and of course these are C5, which normally I would be grabbing them off the tree. They're right there, and you can see they're going to show you that you need to cut off the plastic, but we are replacing them with the hop-up option, so we're using the aluminum propeller joints. So I've pulled together all the pieces, so we'll build all this, and you can see that they're showing you to put the grease. But again, because we're going to use the ball bearings, I'm not going to do that. So I'll just get this all set up and then we'll build those pieces. Okay, so we'll grab one of the propeller shafts, and you can see that the next step is we put in a bearing. So we'll put on that bearing, slide that across just like that. Then they want you to put in this GB3, which is a spur gear stopper. That is going to go over like that, so it just looks like that. Then you need to put in the little pin, which is going to go through the joint shaft before going into the spur gear. Now what's interesting with this, and you just need to make sure that this is aligned, if you can see, there's the mark that's on the spur gear stopper it's rounded out to be the same shape as this. So what you need to do is make sure before you put that pin in that it's at the same level, or I should say the same alignment as the hole, so that when that goes through, and now I'm going to hold this up level, you'll notice that it fits in nice and it's not moving, because you can see that it is, I don't know if you can tell, it was curved. There you go. It's curved specifically so that when that pin goes in, this part can't move at all. So that's what's needed, because that alignment of the pin, okay, is going to go into the spur gear right here, so that when that goes in, it's going to go right into that hole, and now that is locked in place. So this is now locked into the spur gear. So that's how that's going to fit, and it's a nice tight fit. Now you saw how that fits, but to finish this off, you've just got to push this in further so that the black spur gear stopper is resting against the actual spur gear. So that part's done. So then you can see that they want you to put on another bearing on the other side of this. So we'll take the other bearing and put it in place. And then we take the bevel pinion gear, okay? And again, we're going to slide that over top of that. So that's how it's going to look. So that blue of the propeller shaft is pretty much level with the gear itself. So that becomes the end of step 3. So that is what you should end up with after putting this together. That's how it should look. So moving on to step 4, we're going to grab the other aluminum propeller joint, and then as you can see, this is the drive shaft that once again would be right here in the bag, but that is getting replaced with the hop-up aluminum propeller shaft. So we're going to be using that instead. So these are the parts that we need for step 4. So again, I'll just pull them all together and we'll attach that to the spur gear that we just built. Okay, so here we go. We're going to grab the aluminum propeller joint. We're going to put a bearing on the end. You can see that there's now going to be another bearing which is going to sit on the other end, somewhere around there for now. And then we have the other bevel pinion gear which is going to sit on that side, and you just push and snap it in, which is what it says, and it's definitely snapped in. So that's more or less what it's going to end up looking like. And you can see that this, which will now undo. Let's grab the drive shaft. Here we are. So you can see that it's going to end up fitting into that drive, and that's going to sit in that drive. So that is more or less the entire drive line now. So we're going to be able to move on to step 5 and install this into the main chassis. So there's your drive line with all of the aluminum parts. It's very cool. And the aluminum is just so light compared to that sort of bulky drive shaft that it comes with. And not only is it lighter, but I mean, you can see that it's round and smooth, whereas the other one, I'm sure, creates a lot more vibration as well, because it's just this bulky drive shaft. This is sleek. So there's your drive line if you replaced the kit's joints and drive shafts with aluminum parts. So moving on to step 5, we're going to attach the propeller shaft to the chassis. So here is the TT-02 main chassis, and we've got the tapping screws that we're going to need, and they go into this top piece that you can see. This little piece right here, which is this one here, fits down inside there. That goes on top, and then this is going to be screwed down on top of that. So I'll just set this up so we can do that, and we'll screw those screws in. Okay, so here we are. We've got the chassis, and we're going to put this little piece here right in between. Now, I have to tell you, I've been looking at this, and maybe someone out there on YouTube understands this, but this piece fits right there. So obviously with the new drive shaft that we built, the 2 bearings are going to sit on either side of this. But I'm not entirely sure why this piece even exists. I'm thinking this could have been molded to this shape regardless, because it just sits there. And then the other piece, this one, is going to be screwed in, and that's the one that we're going to use the tapping screws. But again, I'm not entirely sure why that just isn't part of the mold, unless this tub is used for something else on a different car and that's just doesn't work with it. So anyways, for purposes for what we're doing, we're going to slide that on top of there. That's now a nice fit. We're going to take our drive setup here, and the first thing we'll do is we'll put that into the back, which sits nicely there. And then this, we're going to make sure that those bearings are in the right place. Which will sit there. So you can see that the drive shaft does have a little bit of movement and play in there. And then this part here, we're going to take and just put on top, just like that. And then we're going to screw the tapping screws down and make that nice and tight, so that then that's locked in place. So I'll just go ahead and screw these in. And I'm just going to do it lightly for the moment, and then I'm going to just finish this off camera, just so I can make sure that this is all seated properly. Yeah, I want to be able to see that better from a better vantage point. But the point is, there is your drive line all in place. And then we'll move on to step 6 once I've screwed that in. Okay, so I have screwed everything in. The tapping screws are down nice and tight. Everything's running smooth. The only thing that I didn't show you when I was putting this in is you can see in there's a little rubber O-ring which I've put into the back side. I don't know whether it matters whether you put it into the back or whether you put it into the front, so I've just chosen to put it into the back. So that means that we are now ready to move on to step 6, which is building the differential gear.